Go district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? Welcome to the district. We are back where winners come to hang. And if you're listening or watching right now, pat yourself on the back because you did good. You did good. Tonight, you are going to learn how to crush your Dynasty StartUp Drafts. And I mean crush. I mean, we brought in the best tonight. It's that time of year. The drafts, startup drafts are just popping wherever you play your leagues. Hopefully you're on the FFPC with Dan and I. We got one tonight that's actually on the MFL as well that we're going to dive into. Dan, it's always a pleasure to join you on the weekly. An honor to talk fantasy with you, my friend. How are you today?
I am doing well. It's I'm happy to just sit down in front of the computer actually for a little while today. It's been one of those runaround days. So as you can tell from the fantastic flow, I've been running in and out of the rain too. So I figured I would just treat all you guys to just, the magnificence of, the unkempt Dan. So
I love it. The perm look, he's bringing back the old school. I love it.
Yes.
Trowel, yep, as they call it in showbiz. But look, man, we tonight is a special show. It's one of my favorite shows. We do at least one of these during the off-field season, as we like to call it. And you and I are actually co-owning a bunch of teams right now, a handful, anyways, of teams. And I feel like we're getting better and better at this co-owning thing. The dynamics of making the picks, the discussions we have, just the rosters that we're building. I feel every time we get into one of these, they're getting better and better. So, I mean, maybe we'd even do a show on that later on this offseason, co-owning and how this dynamic has worked with us. But, I mean, tonight we're talking startups. We're going to use two that you and I and one of our guests are in, and we actually brought kind of an arbitrator, maybe we can call them. These guys have both been on the show many times now. Two of our favorite guests and two of our favorite guys in fantasy. Like, they're on here for reasons, guys. So first of all, we'll invite back our boy, the myth, the legend, as I called him when he came on earlier, Mr. Jordan McNamara. Welcome back to the district, brother.
Well, I'm real. There's no myth here. I'm real. So you guys don't have to worry about me. So I exist. So nice. Thanks for having me back, guys. I love being here.
Yeah, man. Always a blast to have you. For those who don't, I doubt anyone's listening right now in the beginning of April and don't follow Jordan. But if you aren't, follow him at McNamara Dynasty, author of The Analytics of Dynasty, Football Guys podcast, which I was actually watching you last night on there with Chad. You guys had a great discussion on some of the players that we might touch on tonight. So go check that out on YouTube. Subscribe to Jordan's show out there at the Football Guys. And one thing we're going to talk about a bit more in detail later is, and I was telling you in the DMs earlier, Jordan, your site is awesome, man. Like I kind of had a bit more time to take a look at it, and we're going to have an announcement later on, little partnership that we're doing with part of your site. And I just want to say, man, I'm impressed, dude. Like, that thing is no joke. And if you're listening right now, make sure you go check out maybe Jordan can give the website, because my page is a little covered here, but just remind the people of the site and maybe give them a quick Cole's notes on what they can find there.
Yeah, it's analytics@dynasty.com. So I'm doing Dynasty Daily podcast. So I do a podcast every day on Dynasty, on a different Dynasty topic, covering a lot of rookie drafts right now. I was actually just recording a trade show pre this show, so that'll come out tomorrow as well. And I have, I think what you're referring to as well is some of the real draft position data, which is actually tracking real drafts, and we're able to see player movements, player valuations, much quicker movements. This in this time of year, right? This isn't new, and these player valuations move. We've seen with Tyreek Hill, we've seen with Ezekiel Elliott, now we're seeing with Deshaun Watson, right? These offseason movements in player value are really important to know how they're moving. And whether you want to be on the sell side, the buy side of it, whether you're looking for value in startup drafts or in the trade market, right? Knowing where the price is moving before the next ADP comes out, incredibly valuable. So we have drafts that we're constantly tracking drafts. We've got a web app up, so you can go in, search whoever you're looking for. You can look in different time spans, and look at all that. And plus, we have a trade finder. Right, so you can go in, look at. We've got over 6,000 MFL leagues that we pull trades from, and you can constantly go in there and search. You can search. There's no place that has more trades than we do, or more leagues covered than we do in terms of of the trades. And the best part about it, you can search specific players. You can search multiple specific players. So you can search trades that involve multiple players, right? So you can search, hey, what trades have been out there for, quarterback 1 versus quarterback 2, right? Or a Deshaun Watson, trades involving Deshaun Watson and, Dak Prescott, something like that. You can go out and look at all those. You can look at rookie picks. You can look at all those values. It's constantly updating. So, and we're constantly making new improvements to it as well. I was just talking today with my developer, and we're just talking about an improvement we're going to make. So it's going to look even better, I think, here in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, all that stuff, it's up there. And listen, if you're making an investment in a dynasty, right, make an investment in the best information. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's what we're looking to sort of set up for folks that subscribe and are looking to constantly try and get an edge, right? That's kind of what we're looking to provide with this constantly moving market data.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I had it on the screen there just to give people an idea. I looked up a couple of trades today, and I was telling you, it's impressive the amount of trades that you have on there. So Jordan, we'll get back into that a bit later on. Our fourth guest tonight, you've seen him on here often. He just keeps bringing the goodness to the district. Theo, welcome back to the district, brother.
What's going on, guys? Happy to be here.
I forgot the audience for Jordan, but he'll forgive me. So Theo, man, I was thinking earlier, you and I have become really close quickly, and in the DMs, and we're in a bunch of leagues together, that I forget how much goodness you bring to Fantasyland. So just remind people where and what it is they can find, because dude, you're dropping some serious bombs out there, and with some pretty recognizable names as well.
So you can find me on Twitter at the OG Fantasy, and then you can find my writing on Breakout Finder and Player Profiler. I'm going to be doing the waiver wire article on Player Profiler this year, a couple of the team previews, which I'm really excited about, some good stuff. And you can find me on the GOAT District often. So look for me in Twitter streets, and then in FFPC and NFFC, I'm usually Team Greminger, so it's easy to find me.
So tonight like I said, we're going to use a couple drafts that the three of us are in. Jordan's going to kind of be, the voice of reason, the judgment guy. He's got a bunch of hats that he's going to be wearing tonight. We'll pepper him with some questions as well on the strategy side. But before we get into the details, guys, as we normally do here in the market, taking kind of a macro look at, going into these startups, as we go in, whether we think we are or not, you're a type of owner when you go into these. Some guys like to win now. Some people like to, kind of, the progressive struggle, as some people call it. Some people are super active, Dan, as we're seeing in Theo in this Dynasty Depot. Masters draft that we're in with a bunch of sharks on the FFPC. Even the money league, Dan, with the goats in the goat leagues. This last league, high stakes league that we've added, a lot of action going on during the draft. So I'll go to you first, Theo. We brought you in a little later, so we'll get you on the airwaves a little sooner here. But what kind of player are you? I gotta say, the reason I want you on tonight is we've done some drafts together, and you always have one of my favorite rosters when I look at it. Once the draft's done. Not to what's this blow smoke? Is that the
yes?
Blowing for? All right.
blowing smoke up a particular orifice.
There you go. But no, seriously, Theo's a real deal, man. He's got like a gajillion rosters that he's purchased off Dynasty Depot, and he's in the FFPC, but he's really good at drafted. Let the people know, what kind of owner are you? What are some things that you're considering going in strategy wise?
So I think you can kind of gauge your league mates. I've done the productive. I think at times it makes sense to collect those future first rounders and build a nice young team. But I know, like, when we're in this Dynasty Depot draft, the Masters League, you've got half the league trying to get those 2022 firsts, it seems, and it ended up being one owner who traded for like 8 of them. So I don't mind moving up and trying to get a win now team. I think that's a fun way to do it. I have respect for the H apexes, and but I think at the end of the day, I want to win this league. So my goal with this draft was to try to get 3 picks in the top 20. I ended up getting 3 picks in the top 24, and ended up really liking my start. So I can go both ways. I think there's different ways to skin a cat in Dynasty, and you gotta kind of just stick to your guns once you start it. But I generally like a win now approach, mixed in with some younger guys, but I'm not afraid of the productive struggle. I think it's also a great way to win. So I can go both ways when it comes to my team builds.
Jordan, we're in Trade Addicts 5 together. I think it's safe to say you're more on the progressive struggle side of things. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that kind of your approach going into it early, or is it just a matter of accumulating value where you find that that's falling? What's your general approach going into startup?
That my life has changed since that startup draft. I think each year is different. One of the lessons that I've learned specifically from that draft, that is one of the drafts that offseason was a big change in the way that I played. You look at that, I think that draft started in February. And you look at the trades that I did as I was sort of researching analytics of Dynasty, that would have been the 2020 edition. That was the big Superflex edition. I drastically changed how I played Superflex leagues. And that is an example of one of the leagues why. I passed on Aaron Rodgers in that league for Baker Mayfield. And we were talking about Baker before the show. That was a mistake. It's absolutely a mistake. By basically any measure, it was a mistake. And so there was key mistakes that I made in that draft. Dak Prescott later. I mean, there are certain things that happened in that draft that I just can't quite forgive myself for. And I'm still paying for. So I think each year is different. Generally speaking, I think the idea of trading down and getting future assets is historically a good strategy. This year, I've found myself actually, for the first time in my Dynasty career, I traded up to take multiple shots in the first round. I took Dak Prescott. I drew 102 in a startup draft. I took Dak Prescott, and then I traded up to 104 and took Deshaun Watson. So if you have Deshaun Watson, you can thank me for jinxing you. That was right before all the bad stuff happened. So, but I think this year, and as we sort of go further and further, it was always a value to trade down. I think it's becoming, everyone's sort of doing that now. And I think there's actually value in being on the opposite side of that, particularly if you don't have to give future picks. That's a big thing. And the way that the board sets up this year, I do think the option to move up and trade, to be very particular about what you're going to do, but the option to actually move up and trade, like the penalty that I paid, I basically had to move from the 3rd to the 7th round. I paid no price for that. Essentially, I paid no price to move from the 2nd up to the 1st.
Sandwich trade?
Yeah, I
Or-
traded whatever. So I had 102. So I traded 211 and 302 for 104 and 704, I think, something like that.
Yeah. I
And
call it sandwich because you got, the bread
Yeah.
on the outsides and then
Yeah.
the meat in the middle there.
Yeah, and honestly, it's take your bakery reference, but that bottom piece, there's no difference, right? It's there. That's totally a very, very fresh piece of bread that you're getting in the 7th round. That is essentially no different than what you're getting in the 3rd round, at least in the way I look at the world. So I mean that there's a lot of value in that, especially if you want to go up and sort of pay the price to get one of the elite quarterbacks. And I did, and now I'm again talking about trades that I'm actually paying the price for now. That's another one. But I still would do it again.
What's up, Ty? Trading down feels like it has jumped the shark a bit, and I notice folks doing it just to do it almost. And it's like Jordan said, I would say 80% to 70% of the people in the drafts are trying to trade down. With the FFPC looking at format, again, being top heavy and just the way that the setup is, you don't have super deep benches. So it's a little more justified, I think, to move up. Whereas there are rounds that if you can move back, like the 4th round is pretty juicy, the 3rd and the 4th. If you can kind of, sacrifice that first and get yourself a couple more draft picks in those rounds, they're like we said, there's so many ways to skin a cat. But I think it's interesting, Jordan, that the self-recognition and looking back and learning from what you thought, were mistakes at that time and kind of even changing your approach to the game, which is, again, formidable because you always want to be learning, man. You always want to be growing and changing and evolving. And if you're not, then you're probably doing something wrong. If you're still playing the same way you were 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah. And so I actually did some look at this in the 2021 book. So I actually looked at, because I'm always willing to sort of look at something that's contrarian, and if it's there, there's probably value in it if it's right, And this is one of the situations that I absolutely have found some surprising data in. So generally speaking, I think the most common strategy is to try and trade down. And you see that in the data. I think it's 2, maybe 3 times more likely that teams are trying to trade down than trade up. And the interesting part is I basically broke it down into teams that were sort of in surplus of future 1st round picks. So they traded 4 future 1st round picks. So I called those teams in surplus, and I called teams that traded picks away in debt. And then the teams that didn't touch their future first, I consider them neutral. And what you see over the first 2 years of the league, the teams that actually traded away a future first, they on average produce a win more over the first 2 years of their dynasty, of that dynasty startup, than the teams that traded away their future first. So there's some caveats to that. It is significantly higher risk, but I think there is a lot of upside in doing it, especially I think the teams that trade down probably do it wrong too. They trade down and de-optimize their teams in terms of 1 to 2 year windows, whereas I don't think that is probably the optimized play. I think you can probably do both. And if you're willing to do both, there's a middle ground to operate in. But generally speaking, the teams that do trade up, on average, you're better. I think that if you sort of look at it, the maybe in the middle, you're a little bit more risky, and your fall off is significantly, it's a significantly higher fall off for, maybe you call it the middle threshold of those teams. But if you sort of look at the high end upside in particular, it's a lot higher upside than it is for trade, than people have executed the trade down strategy.
So you're saying basically moving up is the optimal move now, but you're saying people are moving down at the wrong time. When is the optimal time? Theo, I know you have something to throw in there, but just before, when is that optimal time to move down? Like for me, and Dan and I are going through this now, it's if nobody's exciting me, or there's not something there that's, there's a bunch of guys that I feel are the same, that's when Dan and I are kind of okay, let's look at maybe an option. Dan, you can throw in any other reasons to move back. But what do you feel, Jordan, is the optimal, if any, to move back in a startup draft?
Yeah, whenever you can get assets that look the same and you can get more on, more by waiting, that's an option that's really intriguing, right? So I think that's what you're spotting for each year. At wide receiver this year, like I said, there's no reason to take one in the third round when you could take Amari Cooper or Mike Evans in the 7th. Like, there's no reason to do that. So whatever you can sort of capture from that, whether that's a move up or a move back, that's the play to me. But generally, I think teams that do that future that trade present startup draft capital for future rookie pick value, right? So they're in surplus. I think they put together their teams wrong because they de-optimize, right? They de-optimize the 1 to 2 year window. And by doing that, they're actually really shooting themselves in the foot, because the loss of that player isn't a franchise changing experience typically. And what you're doing is a lot of those teams are trading down, accumulating a bunch of young wide receivers in the mid rounds that are terrible bets historically. And what they're doing is they're capping their upside. So I think if you do it right, if you trade down and really focus on successful profiles, right? So you optimize, and that is almost always optimizing your receiving position. So optimizing around guys that are have a history of production, that are undervalued. Amari Cooper, Mike Evans, guys in that range in particular this year are glaring examples of that. You sort of, if you were to trade down, sort of take those guys and get the future capital, right? You're productive now. You're not necessarily caving your floor in now or the next couple of years while you're also adding future assets. I think I call it the two-way go. And I think that's probably, like, in a perfect ideal world, that would be where I'd look to operate.
So if you're just doing the sandwich without accumulating future, you're saying that's not worth it. You're not optimizing, basically.
This year, I don't think so. If you can get the future picks, right? I think the disaster scenario is where you trade down, you take an unproven wide receiver, and you sort of get future picks. I think that historically has been a disaster, right? Especially in that, I'll just use the 3rd to 7th range. If you drop from the 3rd round to the 7th round and then take a guy who hasn't done it before, who hasn't really proven successful at the receiver position, that's a huge, right? That's a disaster strategy. Whereas if you trade down, right? If you trade down from, I don't know, we'll just use players as an example, right? If you can trade CeeDee Lamb for Amari Cooper in a future first, that is like having the nuts in poker, because you're serving both ends, right? You're serving the longer term range, you're giving yourself flexibility. And at the same time, you are taking what in the present term is probably a higher likelihood bet in Amari Cooper over CeeDee Lamb. So, right, that's a scenario, right? And you could do that. Generally speaking, I think the teams that trade down, the mistake that they make, the teams that trade out for future assets, the mistake that they make is that they value unproven wide receivers. And that is actually why you see them really struggle over the first couple of years, is because they're making all these future bets, and they're future bets with very low probabilities when you actually look at it, especially in the range that the people are taking them. So that would be the mistake that I would avoid. If I'm going to trade down, I want to take a high variance bet and sort of go with running backs, or sort of play it really tight at wide receiver with some proven guys, and then take the running backs, and then you can capture both outcomes.
I have like 2,800 more questions, so I'm going to let someone else. I just you know what? I'm going to write mine down. I'll come back later. Yeah.
So where do you see yourself focusing, Jordan, in the middle rounds of the draft? Like rounds, say, let's call it 7 through 10, 7 through 11, something like that. What kind of assets are you looking to pick up in that range of a startup?
So historically, I would say that's a good range to. So I'm a big weight on quarterback guy historically in startup drafts, historically, Superflex startup drafts. This year, I think the argument's a little bit different, although I'm coming around on the idea that you can wait. You've lost the ability to go up and get Watson early right now. I mean, you can still do it, but it's riskier. And you've created more of an opportunity later on in the position for some guys that are in multi-year windows. So, in February or January, it didn't look quite so good for Matt Ryan or Jared Goff, for example. Now I think it looks a lot better in the next couple of years. So that I think changes the position. That might look different in August, right? You might get guys who, like, you might get a Mayfield on an extension, right? That changes sort of that range of the position a little bit. Generally, I think at this point of the year, you want to be very selective in terms of the bets you're making, especially with premium assets. So I was sort of valuing the locked in quarterbacks at the early part of the calendar, and then I can sort of transition to that later. So, in August, I'm probably going to be looking in that range at in the quarterback range, 6th to 8th round. I think there's going to be value in there in startup and superflex startup drafts. Otherwise, I think that's, that can be tight end. You sort of look in that range. I mean, that range, just to give you an idea, Evans and Cooper are going like late 6th, early 7th round, somewhere in that range. And then when you sort of, you get Juju in that range as well. But outside of that, you sort of get into a range where you don't want to be taking a ton of wide receivers. You start to look at some of the running backs in that range as well. I think into, depending on the bet you're trying to make, I think there are some specific guys in the 8th, 9th, 10th round this year that make some sense. Woods, Lockett, right? Those types of guys. Again, guys that have proven it and done it. If you can get a tight end in that range, if you can get a top 6 to 8 tight end, I really like that strategy this year as well. And then running backs. I mean, taking a lot of running backs, especially outside the top 75 of drafts. I think I start almost all of my decision-making process with, I don't want to draft wide receivers outside the top like 80, 90, 100 picks of a startup draft. Every time I can avoid doing that, I'm plus EV. And so I'm just going to try and avoid that. So structure my entire plan around not taking wide receivers. So take them early and then be able to fill in the gaps at running backs is really my plan.
Got it. So what do you do, like in the early rounds, we can either talk one quarterback or, assume we're talking if you're not taking quarterbacks. Are you more likely to take those premium running backs? Are you more likely to take those premium wide receivers and then try to put it together later at running back? How do you approach that aspect of it?
Yeah, I think the scoring system and the roster and the lineup construction, all that matters. But generally in like a neutral setting, I would say I want to play the wide receiver position very tight. So I want to play with guys that are proven assets, and I want to play with not many of them, because that creates a lot of roster flexibility later on. So again, I love guys like Amari Cooper and Mike Evans because they're undervalued. So this year it's a little bit different because you can sort of look at that top of the board and be like, man, like I can get into that range and get Amari Cooper and Mike Evans as wide receivers 3 and 4 or 2 and 3, something like that. Like that's a incredible scenario this year. So I can maybe go a little bit earlier at the running back position than I could in prior years, just the way the market is allowing me to do that this year. So I'm taking that. Historically, I would say, I'd break ties in the top, the top 75, 80 picks of a startup draft. I'm breaking ties in favor of wide receivers. What you'll see there is your sort of your hit rate's higher. Your odds of anytime you take a running back over, anytime you take a wide receiver over a running back, you're losing upside. That's, I think, the easiest way to say it. The question is, how do I do that as few times as possible, right? Anytime I take a wide receiver over a running back, I'm losing value, is the way I sort of think about it, as a shorthand way. The least value that you'll lose is early in a startup draft, right? So if I have to take them, I'm still waiting for a league where I don't have to draft wide receivers. But until that time, I'll take them early, and I'll just sort of understand the bet that I'm making. It's a safety, it's a roster construction bet, and then I can get 2 3-to-1 running backs to wide receivers on my roster as the draft goes forward. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. Again, this year I think you can splurge on a running back or 2 early with the idea of, hey, through the first 7-8 rounds, I want to have 4 wide receivers, right? How does that look? Essentially, that's kind of would sort of be my baseline, right? If I can sort of get the top 8 rounds, have 4 wide receivers, package to board together the rest of how it fills in. That's kind of my goal.
Theo, did you have anything before we kind of hit the
No,
board here?
No, I think Jordan hit on just a ton of stuff. I just think, like, to piggyback a little bit on what Jordan said, it's become such a common strategy for people to try to trade back and get future picks that you almost find better value these days just going against the grain. And I think sometimes the sharper the league you're in, the more people you're going to have trying to get those first. So I think Jordan said a lot of great stuff, but I've become a little less scared of trading my future first to move up and get that extra pick. I think it's an aggressive strategy, and I think a lot of time you're gonna like your team better doing that. So yeah, Jordan hit on a ton of good stuff right there.
Right.
You can always get it back, right? That first, it's almost like getting a guy on rental. It's like, that team that's going into the playoffs and they make that trade at the last minute just to get that rental player. They know they're not going to, they're not whatever is a free agent or whatever at the end of the year, but that's that piece that's going to get you the ship. You know what I mean? So it's almost like you're kind of renting it. Look, you're not going for the ship week whatever later in the season. Your team breaks down for whatever reason. You can make moves. You can trade those pieces to get that pick back. And you keep talking about Evans and Cooper. Dan, Cooper is our wide receiver 3 on this roster that we've got up on the board. I know Jordan might not like the last pick that we made, but you know what? We have a pick on the clock right now, and we can kind of discuss it. But let's just start with this board. I knew we would not follow any show sheet tonight, so as much as I try to put one together, we are already way off. But Jordan is just dropping legit bombs. So if you just stumbled on this tonight, this stream, or you stumble on it, in the next few days or whatever, you got to listen to this stuff, man. You can't go into your drafts without all this goodness or all this goatness, as we can call it. So I don't know, Dan, you know what? You're like, where do you want to start on this draft right now? I know you've kind of started a bit asking about those early rounds. I really want to ask him, about the rookie receivers. That's kind of what I'm just from about a few minutes back when he was talking about, kind of putting your faith and your investment into those younger, unproven receivers. Are we talking like in a draft like this one, Jordan? You know what, Dan? I'm going to steal it and just start it off. You could take it next. And selfishly ask him about this because we got to make a pick, and I want to know where he's at. Like, this is a draft right now, so just so everyone knows, this is the Dynasty Depot Masters High Rollers Dynasty Draft on the FFPC, the greatest site to play fantasy football on. If you're not on there right now, it's myffpc.com. Go sign up. Tag Dan and I in the DMs or DM us, and we'll send you a quick link so you can get a little bonus action when you sign up. But Jordan, in this specific draft, the startup included the players, not the draft picks, because we haven't had the NFL draft, but it includes the players. It's a 1 QB tight end premium, and it's just a bunch of sharks, like a bunch of high stake maniacs in here. ADP is out the window from round one. My question is specifically going back to what you said earlier with the unproven receivers. Would you stay away from the rookie receivers in this situation, like in the 7-8 round, like an Elijah Moore type of guy that Dan and I literally just took at 805 or 806? Sorry, 804.
So generally speaking, if you look at the ADP over the course of a year, so you basically take all the ADP for a player from January through August, and you sort of look at wide receivers. If you compare wide receivers of at the same cost, right? They're basically their entire offseason cost, and you say, all right, let's look at guys who have done it versus guys who haven't done it, and whether that's rookies, it's just the blanket, the guys that haven't done it at the same cost, right? At the same startup draft cost, it's about it's going to cost you about basically about a half a win over the first 4 years of your dynasty startup. that's basically what you're expecting to lose by taking the guy that hasn't done it over the guy that has at least a top 24 seasonal finish. There's a couple of caveats to that, which is if you take someone right now, that's not to say where their dynasty startup draft is going to, where their ultimate ADP ends up, right? So if you're ahead of the market on a guy in the 10th round and you think, hey, listen, he's going to go earlier in the draft, he's going to end up being, by the time this thing's all said and done, he's going to be a 6th round startup pick. That projection ultimately ends up looking better from a market value perspective, from a production perspective, all of those things. Generally speaking, you're better off to take and this is one of the things with the arbitrage thing that we were talking about earlier, is if you can trade a guy that hasn't done it for a guy that has done it 4 rounds later in valuation, plus whatever that pick is, right? So I use the 3rd to the 7th as a comp, right? If you have a 3rd round startup pick that hasn't produced a top 24 seasonal finish yet, and you trade him for a future first and a pick in the 7th round, and you can pick in the 7th round someone that has done it. Their win share, right? Their WARP, their wins over replacement over the next 4 years is projected to be the same. Plus you're getting the future asset. So that's how I think about it, right? Again, maybe is you said it was Elijah Moore you guys took, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that can be, a couple of things, right? It can be, hey, he's going up, right? And there's other things to sort of value in it, right? As future market value as a preservation strategy. I don't typically do that, but I do think that there's there's an argument for it. I think it's largely random on it. To a large extent, it's random on how the market reacts to a player. Or our ability to predict that, I guess, is the better part. So I don't do a ton of that, but I realize that there's a value to that as well. There's an insulation perspective to a guy on his rookie deal, especially if you think he's going to be like a top, 65 pick in the NFL draft.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the way that we were aiming with that. We have a good mix of players, I guess I would say, from not very experienced to quite experienced. We've got Justin Jefferson, and then we took Waller and Tyreek Hill. Came back with Aaron Jones, then Amari Cooper. So we've got a nice mix. Yeah, our roster is up here right now. Lamar Jackson, so we're looking to, we've already traded away our 1st round pick, which I have no problem doing, our 2022 1st round pick, because basically, what you're doing is you're trading away uncertainty for certainty. If you trade away that pick for the right thing. Now, if you go and you draft, if I traded away that pick and then we drafted Elijah Moore with it, I think that wouldn't really be doing any good. But when you take that pick and you use it as part of the package that you're using to get, a Darren Waller or an Aaron Jones or something like that, that makes a lot more sense, because then you are buying some certainty with your uncertainty. And, as JD said, you still could get that pick back, but, basically you've it's the classic, do you want what's in the box or do you want the boat? With Aaron Jones, you've got the boat. This is what you're trying to get. The box could be anything. And it could also be something very crappy. So, those future firsts, you don't know if it's going to be a high first, a low first. The average future first has maybe a 50% chance of hitting. So you're trading away, this asset that's not even going to be good for a year. And then it only is a coin flip of actually panning out for you. And you can use that to help you, move up and take an Aaron Jones. That, to me, that makes all the sense in the world. So I just wanted to throw that in as well.
Yeah, Aaron Jones has broken my heart with the AJ Dillon thing. I just figured I'd get that on the record.
Yeah, I know, and same for us. I mean, JD and I, we have some teams with AJ Dillon. We just, not long before that happened, we traded Laviska Shenault for AJ Dillon, and that's probably going to be one that haunts us a little bit. But
I don't think that's going to haunt you.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to haunt you. I think it's still a good trade.
Okay, well,
that's still a good trade.
we got the Jordan seal of approval on that one. So
Jordan's who got me on the AJD train, man. I just dove deep into it. I remember last year, that was a big topic on our shows, and he became one of my, especially when I saw him like play, man. I was just kind of drooling there. So I collected as many shares as I could, and unfortunately didn't pay off immediately in the sense that Jones is gone. But I feel the same way as you, Jordan. I think the opportunities are still there. Jamal Williams leaving. It's the running back position. There's a lot of factors there. Good offense, all that goodness.
He's a suited connectors, right? He's suited connectors.
That's a great analogy.
It's all asymmetric outcome. It's a ton of outs, and there's the ability to absolutely take down an enormous pot with it, right? Like, he's the type of bet that, maybe the odds of it hitting are lower than it was, but there's a ton of outs, and the outs can be absolutely an enormous outcome. So I love those bets. I'll constantly make those bets. I'm always looking to make those bets.
It's how rusty my poker brain is right now, because I used to spit those numbers out like nothing, like it was my last name, and I'm like, how many, and it's wow. Practice, right? Theo, how you liking the draft so far? Any observations, that you've kind of gathered as we go through this? There's been a lot of actions. Have you been involved, or you kind of? Why don't you just give us your quick kind of, Cole's notes, I guess you could say, on the Dynasty Depot Masters draft?
So I made a couple moves. Pre-draft, I made a trade with to move up and get that 11 pick, which turned out to be Calvin Ridley, which I was very excited about. I think he gives me, short-term and long-term production. Like Jordan said, those wide receivers are very valuable to build around. And I also made a move as soon as you guys took Lamar Jackson. I really wanted to get Kyler Murray. I attempted to trade up with you guys. Austin Martin ended up trading up, getting Kyler Murray. So as soon as he took Kyler Murray, I went immediately to get Dak. In my opinion, it's a clear teardrop after Justin Herbert for the dynasty quarterback. Obviously Trevor Lawrence could enter that equation, or he could be completely far away from it a year from now. But I thought that was a tier that I wanted to be in. And other than that, I kind of took the board as it came. I really wanted to make sure that I had 2 running backs. I understand that, Dalvin Cook is a little bit kind of long in the tooth for a dynasty perspective. He's signed to a contract, and I think I could get 2 years production out of him at a high running back 1 production at least, hopefully more than that. And Nick Chubb, getting him there, I was very happy about as well. So I had balance in my first few picks, and I'm happy with the way it went. Irv Smith would be the one where there's a little bit of, if you want to find a reach, FFPC is tight end premium. So I didn't think it was much of a reach, but I think he would have gone in that round anyway. It might have been more prudent to take a Cooper Kupp, but I wanted to square down tight end, so I went with Irv. I kind of viewed Irv Smith and Mike Gesicki as kind of their own tier for FFPC tight ends there. So it was kind of between those two. So I'm pleased with the way the draft is going. I think Mike has balance, and I think I'll be in the mix year 1. And I don't hate.
Sorry, I just want to say, Theo, I don't hate the Irv pickup there, because if you look after Gesicki goes, I mean, you could take any one of those guys after that and just kind of, shake, especially with the New England pickups with Jonnu and Henry gone. It makes it such a flat tier now that I don't hate your pickup of Irv there at all. Yeah,
no, I think it's fine. And a couple of observations were, I think FFPC startups, the running backs are going to go really early. I think that, like we saw from our draft, was 23 out of the first 36 picks were running backs. And then it got even hot and heavy after that. I mean, a guy like Kenny Gainwell, who I think will go in first rounds of our rookie drafts in FFPC, but there's a chance fall to the early second round. I mean, he's going at like the 5'10".
Yeah.
I thought that was a little aggressive. Obviously, the person who drafted him is a very sharp guy. I'm not going to question his process, but I thought that was a little aggressive for Gainwell. I'm not sure if Gainwell is going to give you more value than Trey Sermon, who went, 2 rounds later. And I think that it's been a very aggressive draft for rookies. I don't have any rookies yet. I don't really. I'm glad I didn't reach for some of them, but I think it's been a very aggressive draft for rookies. And then the other thing that stood out was Kyle Pitts. I mean, Kyle Pitts is the guy's a rocket ship FFPC wise. I think that if you want him in a startup, you're having to use a second rounder on him.
210,
which is it's a tough putt to do. We had this discussion, JD, before where we discussed Kyle Pitts and how would he return value year one. I mean, he'd have to have a tremendous amount of touchdowns to, challenge. I think, he's being drafted at tight end 4. For him to give you tight end 4 production would be a really tough putt. So that stood out to me. And other than that, it's been a great draft. And I think people are taking shots on guys. There is no ADP. It's kind of like ADP is being created with this draft.
Yeah, it's tough, man. That tight end position. It's we talked about it. It's I'm going to sit on the sideline with Pitts and let everyone else kind of enjoy that. I'll go get him at a discount later on, and if he doesn't, I'm fine with it.
With Pitts, that's kind of the analog to the discussion we were having before we went live about Trevor Lawrence.
Yes,
he's a perfect prospect, right? In a lot of ways, but that being a fantastic prospect is not in any way a guarantee of success. We've seen fantastic prospects, maybe not quite as good as Pitts, but we've seen some pretty fantastic prospects in past years, that just really haven't panned out that well. Evan Engram was supposed to be fantastic. We had David Njoku was supposed to be fantastic. Howard was supposed to be fantastic. They were all 3 in the same draft.
Even Gesicki as a rookie was supposed to be the next Terminator. He's a physical specimen, this, that, and
right. Yeah. And then you look at, who actually hits, and you've got Kelsey, who, if you took him, you had to wait a year before you could even think about using him because he had foot surgery. You had Kittle, who was drafted in the 5th round. You had Jonnu Smith was, what round was he in the NFL draft? He was like 3rd, 4th, something like that. So Mark Andrews was drafted after Hayden Hurst, on the same team. Hayden Hurst was drafted in the 1st round. Mark Andrews drafted in the 4th round. So you can take your pedigrees, and they don't mean as much as you think they do. So I'd much rather, at tight end especially, I'd much rather take a proven asset, than somebody like Pitts, who, probably will perform pretty decently during his first year. But, I don't think he's going to do as well as Hawkinson. I don't think he's going to do as well as Andrews, Goddard, probably not even as well as Irv Smith, maybe not even as well as Mike Gesicki, right? There's just, you're paying a lot. You're not getting a lot this year, and you're just hoping that he turns into Kelsey or Kittle in future years. And I just don't think he can count on that.
I like him more, just from thinking about the FFPC, I like him more as a guy you can take in a rookie and startup pick, because you lose so much value having to take him in that late second. If you're sitting at the 104, the 105, and you want to take him, I think that's great, and I'm probably going to do that with a couple of my teams. But again, it's like you said, you can wait and take Hawkinson. Think about all the running backs and wide receivers that are passed up for Pitts right there. So I'm very high on him, but you're talking about a 20-year-old tight end. You hit the nail on the head with that Kelsey one. Kelsey's about as good as it gets, and we had to wait for him. Gronkowski had a ton of touchdowns his rookie year. Ty makes the point of Jeremy Shockey, who had a number of touchdowns his rookie year. So, you're really banking on touchdowns. that's a tough way to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And there's just there's no sense of certainty. I think what people are doing in this draft, and I think it's why we're seeing a lot of aggressive drafting of the rookies, is that pretty much all of us have traded our future first to BIP. So given
that's so true, right? Like sometimes the answer is so basic and like just in your face. Like he's got all the firsts, so we want to make sure we have youth. Like it's 1 + 2,
Exactly. So yeah, Bip is sitting around with his 8 future first round picks, and we're happy for him. Bip's a sharp player. Don't get me wrong. And I don't know how he's going to use them. I mean, given the format, we're going to be cutting to 16 next year, and Bip's going to be real happy with his future, his 8 future first. And then we're going to get to the rookie draft, and if he doesn't somehow trade some of them away or combine them, we're gonna get back up to however many picks. I mean, he could have 30 players, but he's gonna have to cut back to 20 players before the season starts. So and yeah, he can move some of those into still more future picks or whatever. But I think that there's I don't know where the inflection point is. For me, it's probably about 3 future firsts. Past that, I don't necessarily want to go, just because then I'm pushing too much value down the line, and I've got too many wild cards. Yes, you can hit a Justin Jefferson, but you can also hit some Jalen Reagors or whoever, who just haven't fired at all, and their value is a lot. It's not being maintained nearly as well. So that's kind of where I'm at on that.
No, I bring up like tons of awesome points there. Dan, I've got on the screen here the kind of the draft room, just because we're on the clock.
Yep.
We're already at 52. Like we could literally do a 4-hour show, guys. It's not even like we had 2 drafts to look at. We had a bunch of questions. We're gonna do like look at Jordan's site, and we were so organized. And then you turn on the red light, and now it's 52 minutes in, and we barely looked at the first draft. So we're gonna do this really quick, Dan. We talked about Elijah Moore that we picked in our. This is where we trade back. We traded back actually. We picked up. I'm gonna put the draft board back on, but we traded back and we picked up 2. Is it 2 or 3 in the 8th? No, we've got 2 in the 8th at 804 and 806. So we picked up Elijah Moore at 804. We have a very win now type of roster. You mentioned Jefferson, Cooper, and. Who's our second?
So we have Tyreek Hill,
That's
Justin
it.
Jefferson,
That's
Amari
it.
Cooper at wide receiver. We have Waller at tight end. We have Lamar Jackson at quarterback. And then we have Aaron Jones and Chuba Hubbard so far at running back.
With
and
that,
we just took Elijah Moore as our 4th wide receiver. So
our bench looks like a team that traded their first away. You bang some youth. So right now we're at 806. We picked up Elijah as our 4th receiver behind 3 studs that will always start for us. And Dan, I don't know, like how are we going to do this? We've got a guy on the show here that's going to be picking. So
here we go. How about this? Let me put up a different screen.
All right.
We've kind of talked about who we have. I'm going to show something that kind of shows who's available in a rough order of ADP here. Let's see.
So I got a quick question for Jordan, just looking at the quarterbacks, because Dan and I were sitting on this one for a while. And I know they're same tier, but Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, we went back and forth on this so much. Looking at a guy that in a small sample size last year just blew it up. He's got the weapons out there in Dallas, yada, 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 the contract. But Lamar sneaky in the sense that people consider he had a down season, which was still really good. I'm just curious, Jordan, just with like, where are you with those 2 quarterbacks in this type of format? If you're kind of in you want to win now, balance out kind of the future. But where are you with those two quarterbacks? I'm just curious quickly while Dan pulls this up.
Dak Prescott to me is quarterback 2 with Mahomes, and then it's a tier break.
Dan, did I not tell you that in our DM?
You did.
Yeah.
I
call those.
I strong-armed him into Lamar Jackson just because I like the floor.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I think Lamar's probably undervalued. But to me, Dak Prescott, when you sort of look at his resume, there's a lot more safety there. You sort of know a lot more about him. It's high volume passing attack too. So you're not just dependent on him being a runner or touchdown variance. And I look at the quarterbacks. I call it the super max quarterbacks. And so that is basically the guys that signed the huge extensions with the team that drafted them. And they're sort of insulated, young, and good. And to me right now, there's only 2 of them, and that's Mahomes and that's Prescott. And Watson was in that sexual predator bender that he went on. But yeah, besides those guys, it's a tier break. I mean, like, I like Josh Allen, I like Kyler Murray, like, they intrigue me, but they're not to that level of insulation, right? Because I think with any of those guys, if they have a down year right now, you sort of sit back and you look at that and you're like, like, are you going to pay that guy, 5 for 175? Right? Is that what you're going to do? Or, because, like Kyler, all those guys, like a coaching change for Kyler Murray totally creates an entire different ecosphere, right? An entire different ecosystem. With Lamar Jackson, an injury right now, he's not locked in. Where Dak Prescott, he is locked in. Right? You sort of know what he's going to be. A down year with Lamar Jackson right now, not on a locked-in contract, like that creates uncertainty, especially with the fact you haven't seen him truly grow as a passer. So all of those things, it's Dak Prescott to me. I think he's just in another tier.
So just really quickly, yes or no? So if Lamar signs long-term with Baltimore, because right now he's at the end of his contract, and correct me if I'm wrong, because with contracts I'm often wrong, but is that not the case? And then if he resigns and gets a big contract, does he now move into there, or are you just basing this on their talents?
Yeah, so it's a combination of insulation and talent for me. So he's on the 4th year. They'll almost certainly, I would imagine, pick up his 5th year extension because he's eligible. And we'll see if they make an extension this year, what they do. It'll insulate him. I think you have to think about him and Kyler Murray differently, for example. Right. Same with Josh Allen. If that were to happen to Josh Allen, I don't see the rush on some of these guys, right? We've seen that mistake made. Jared Goff, Carson Wentz. We've seen that play out. And Dallas got rung up for not doing it with Prescott. Like, they waited, and they paid a little bit more, but they got a whole lot more certain about it too, and that's certainly worth something. So for me, I don't think Lamar Jackson, until he becomes a truly dynamic elite passer, that he's going to be in the Prescott level.
Yep. Yeah. I see where you're coming from there. I think his, I look back at, like the Michael Vick and Cam Newton type examples, where their ceiling is really, really high and their floor is very strong too. And that's not to say that they can't finish, in the bottom end of the, top 12 quarterbacks or whatever. They certainly can. But they're also one of the more likely quarterbacks to finish, up in 1, 2, or 3 as well, just off the strength of, what they can do with their legs, and if they even develop somewhat as a passer, I don't think all hope is totally lost for Lamar Jackson. He's at least got pocket awareness, and like Mike Vick. So there's something to be said for that. But anyway, getting back into our next pick, what I've done is I've pulled up, this is the running backs roughly by ADP, so you can see, who we've got sitting in front of us. We have right now just Aaron Jones and Chuba Hubbard at running back. So running back is definitely always going to be a consideration with us. And the way we're constructing our roster is very similar to what you've been talking about, Jordan. We're planning on going very lean and trim at wide receiver so that we can basically, pack the back end of the draft with running backs here.
Theo, earmuffs, please. Earmuffs.
Yes. No, it's fine. I'm good at predicting your picks anyway. So
I don't think I'm just necessarily spilling state secrets.
No,
here.
man, no. Theo knows.
We can see it from the way we're putting it together. So these are the running backs available, but we can still also, there are a lot of pretty productive wide receivers left. So we'll show those, like Julio still out there.
And I wanted to ask Jordan actually about that, because this is something like, you get to a point in the draft where that this is where you need to pick up. Let's say that you talked about those rookie receivers that you believe in. They're not getting past this round, or maybe there's that veteran receiver that's putting up like top, wide receiver 1, top 15 numbers regularly, but they're maybe getting closer towards the end of that career. So you got to decide right between those two. And I know it comes back to balancing the roster and all that, but where do you fall on kind of these older guys when you're deciding, because you're saying, maybe you don't want to invest on that unproven receiver unless you truly, truly believe that you're getting the value and all that. But what about these guys that, they've been there, they've done it, they're maybe on the back end. How do you fit that into your rosters, if at all?
I think you have to understand the bet you're making, right? So with the Julio Jones, you're probably not going to be flipping him. You're probably not going to be selling him at a.
Oh, he's a lifer on your team.
Yeah,
probably, right? He's my 97 Grand Am. Right when I had my 97 Grand Am with 190,000 miles on it, right? I couldn't trade it in for what it was worth to me because I had no other car, and so he's that, right? He's probably going to outproduce whatever his cost is from here on out. Would be my projection for him, and so you have to understand that when you make the bet. I don't necessarily think it's a bad bet. It's probably an illiquid one, but that doesn't mean it's bad. You just have to understand that when you make it. Other guys, like you said, guys that are top 15 that are closer to the end. Like I was just looking and I was like, Brandon Cooks 4 rounds later than Odell Beckham Jr., which is just when you think about that for a second, like how many top 24 seasons has Brandon Cooks posted since the last time Beckham did one? Because it's multiple at this point and he's going at a discount. It's pretty remarkable when you compare those two guys. So those are the options in there, right? And again, are they ever going to be worth much more than they are right now? Probably not, but that they're underpriced too. So that's kind of the thing. At this point, you're either going to make a bet like that, or you're going to make an upside running back bet. You get into the range where they're probably not necessarily longer term. They're not guys that are locked into multi-year contracts at running back typically in this range. But if you sort of look in that range, there's some higher upside plays. I would take a more variant play like Fournette compared to a guy like Damian Harris, for example. Pollard versus Damian Harris. I want the bimodal or the high variance strategy with the running backs.
Jordan, sell him on Pollard because I've been telling him Pollard here. Just tell him.
Yeah, Pollard. These guys that are injury away guys. And you're sort of. That's the bet with Dylan to some degree, I guess. You could get some flex viability. You could, I guess, with Pollard a little bit too. But I think like at Pollard's best, he's almost undoubtedly better than Damian Harris.
Right.
Just because I think at Pollard's best, he's probably got, top 10 projected weekly score in any week that Zeke's out. And Zeke has proven to be pretty healthy in his career, but has not been, he's not infallible in terms of staying on the field for other reasons. So that is always out there. And there's always there's a natural risk to the running backs, and you have him in a really good offense. I think that's a pretty high upside bet. And you look at some of these other ones, so Fournette's the same way. It's funny that Ronald Jones is going ahead of him and, 2 rounds ahead of him by your data. And, that's for Fournette's probably going to come back and be the touch leader, especially the receiving guy. That's an interesting one. And then I look at the other guys too in this range, and I look at catch me some high range of outcomes guys. I mean, that Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson are fascinating to me in terms of.
The problem is we own so many shares. Dan loves those guys, so we're
just keep leveraging it. Just keep leveraging it. Just keep. Just I know JD doesn't like to get into that hammer like 100% market share, but I am not afraid. I'm going to run right towards it.
I don't go over 35%, man. I have a rule, it's like 35-40 is my max.
Give me, you'd be alarmed at some of my exposures on some of these guys.
No, you're like the Shiva. The Shiva goes like 89, man. If he believes, he believes, he's like, not walking the walk. He's running that walk.
Yep.
Yeah. I had Gio at like 84% market share last year, just because it was like I was getting him outside the top 200 of startup drafts, and and that cost. I'm like, how do I not? He's vastly outperformed his value, like crushed it in terms of what he did last year compared to what his cost was. And if he never plays another down, which I don't think is going to happen, but I think he could find himself in a similar situation. But yeah, I love those asymmetric bets. So those are the types of bets that I'm making in this range, generally speaking. So I'm avoiding a guy like Zach Moss just because I don't think he has difference making. What's his best case scenario? Right, he's like a running back 2 projection in a week, and what's Mostert's like? Mostert could finish in the top 10 of the position. Right? Is that a likely outcome? No, but it's absolutely a possible one. Those are the types of things that I think about. And this is a range too where the hit rate isn't super high. What round are you in right now? Is it 8th?
Yeah,
I think it was. I couldn't see it. Okay.
806.
So you're sort of looking in that range. I mean, you're looking 40%, something like that. I mean, that's kind of what your hit rate would be.
Yep.
That's a pretty big. Those are some. If you're going to get like some good top 12, top 15 juice in that pick, like that's pretty interesting. So I like those asymmetric guys in that range.
Yep, that makes sense.
All right, I just threw it up here. All right, so Dan, we gonna do this live on air pick right now with at the 806. I feel like we've given Theo like so much ammunition here that just the amount of information he's gathering here. He's just sitting back with his popcorn, taking notes.
I'm just taking notes, man.
So, JD, are you still thinking about the guy that we have not mentioned that we were thinking about before, or are you moving in a different direction?
I don't feel any more decided. Like, it's one of these where it's hard to kind of talk about this right now on air with our boy Theo in the house and maybe some other leakers out there just hiding behind the bushes, peeking, trying to stick the glass against the door and get any piece of information they can. But are you still on that piece that we talked about?
I'm kind of leaning maybe a little bit of a different way. I mean, it was a way that I was looking at before, and I'm thinking we might want to go back and revisit some of the players we previously talked about before we got on the air. So
okay,
we'll maybe do that after we get off the air.
I think I know what you mean, but we'll keep it for off the air. So we apologize. It won't be
Theo's down there.
Theo's like his face just keeps getting closer to the camera every time.
I'm two away. I know you're just going to take somebody I'm thinking of anyway. So it's
all about the snipes.
Yeah.
I feel like Theo and I are sitting here like two kids watching their parents like talk about.
It's like we just got that carrot.
What are they talking about?
There's going to be no pick. I mean, come on, man.
All right, I promise. I promise my boy Johnny Guerrero in the chats here on YouTube that we would post in our transactions so far in this draft. So I believe you can actually see each of our picks. So we picked up Jefferson, picked up Hill, and then we moved a 2021, the 707, the 406, and a 22 second for the 209. and the 10-12. So again, what we talked about, moving up to get that guy. We picked up Aaron Jones and Darren Waller, and then we traded away the 1406 and our first rounder for the 504. Dan, who did we take at 504?
504 was Amari Cooper.
Picked up Cooper. Next trade we made is we received the 602 and the 511, and we sent 606 and 507.
Yep. So that was one of your sandwich deals.
That's right. That's right. And then we came back here with our boy Austin. We traded the 511 and 806, and we picked up, again, a little sandwich deal, picked up the 709 and the 604. So we moved back about 5-6 spots, and then moved up almost a round. And then again, another trade. We traded the 604 and the 10-12, little sandwich move, picked up 2 picks, which we're at right now in the 8th, 806 and 804, and picked up Amari Cooper, like we talked about, Dan, and our boy Lamar Jackson, which we decided to take over Prescott, which, I'm still fine with it, man. I got Prescott in enough places. We're here to win, and Lamar is he's just a fun guy to own, man. You know what I'm saying? So Johnny Guerrero, there you go, brother. There's our lineup of moves that we made so far in this action-packed Dynasty Depot Masters startup.
Right. And one of the things we were doing too was, after we picked up Cooper, we had 3 wide receivers. We were kind of waiting for the quarterback run to start. We already had a good tight end, so we didn't really need one of those. There wasn't really any good running backs that we were interested in available. So we felt like we were kind of waiting for the quarterback run to start. So, and we felt like the value was pretty, it was going to be pretty much a step down pretty quickly after Theo took Mike Evans. Then, I thought the wide receivers were a step down. So I didn't really want to be grabbing a wide receiver there. And we had the other positions covered. So we just kind of kept trading back until we got to the point where like, okay, yeah, I think if we take Lamar Jackson now, we're going to start a quarterback run. And, that's pretty much what happened with Jalen Waddle sitting there in the middle of it. But, It was just like we were kind of waiting for that point where we're like, okay, if we take a quarterback now, we can make some dominoes fall. And then, when our next pick comes around, we're that much closer, because we're already covered at quarterback and other people are going to be taking those quarterbacks instead.
Yeah, you kind of want to push those other positions down that you're not necessarily looking for.
Right.
All right, guys. Look, like I said, man, we could do like a mini series, like those Netflix, they got those special mini series that come up on the reg. But Jordan, man, it's always a blast having you on. Before we kind of exit this and do all that kind of segment of the show, I don't want to miss on this because we will be using as the official trade finder on the show. You talked about it a bit, you touched on it a bit. With regards to, I'm going to try to pop it up as I'm chatting here, but with regards to just the amount of trades that you're pulling in, I think you said something like 6,000 leagues on MFL. And I know just myself, kind of using tools like this, the volume is definitely a step above what I'm used to. So I definitely appreciated that. Why don't you just, again, remind the people where it's at, what they can find on there, and maybe you can walk me through it as I try to pull it up.
Yeah, so you can find it at analyticsdynasty.com. You're looking on the draft database there up on the top, further to the left on where you're looking right now. A couple more to look. There you go.
Right here.
Yeah, up on the top of the screen there. And so you can go through and you can search. And I think one of the I love to see what the market is doing. I love to see how the market's reacting. Some really nice features about this. You can sort by, there's one of the best parts I think about it is when you can search by player, or you can go in and just sort of just scan some of what's going on. And as you'll see right now, there's actually we figured out what's going on. There's some one player deals with nothing else on the other side. There's actually dispersal drafts going on that are showing up as trades. So we're going to work on.
So I'm going to jump in, Jordan, because I clicked
Yeah.
on this most traded. I thought it was going to
Yeah.
show, maybe the most active, but this is pretty cool. This is literally showing you the most active players right now and the amount of volume that's moving. Am I correct?
Yeah, so this is this is using their baseline in terms of where they're at, and how frequently they're traded, and this is over the last I think the default settings the last couple of weeks here. I think it's 15 days in terms of what their volume is over what it typically is. So you'll see, I mean, no surprise there. It's Deshaun Watson's number one, Jalen Hurts number two. It's actually changed in the past day. Brandon Ayuk. Well, I tweeted this out yesterday. Brandon Ayuk was the most expensive, or was the biggest uptick in terms of his trading volume among non-quarterbacks. That was, I think, as of yesterday. So Chase Edmonds has just jumped up above him. You see some of the other guys, and these are the guys that are in on some high level debates too. Right. And so there's some movement in their value. There's a lot of different reasons for their movement. But I love that feature because it tells you, hey, listen, if I'm on a particular side of this, like this player might be accessible in your drafts. Just the default, you can scan through and just see what's going on. Right. You don't even need to search for a player. You can just peruse through and just search hundreds of trades. Just scan.
So is this showing the most recent trades if you don't put a player in?
Yep, it's just showing the most recent trades, and you'll see they're all from today, awesome. Including some dispersal drafts where there's a couple of guys in there just on their own side of the trade. So, but yeah, you can just go down there and see, what's going on. It shows you the format, and then you can get more selective if you want. You can get selective on, the passing touchdown amount, whether it's tight end premium or anything like that, super flex, non-super flex, your starter formats in terms of wide receivers and tight ends. You can search by all those things and break it down if you really want to, and just see what trades are going on, who's going where, and all those. So if you can search in, like you just searched in CD Lamb, like you can see just a couple days ago he went for 105 and 108 in a super flex draft.
Yeah,
and a super flex league.
I am curious to see if I can find my CD Lamb buy on here with Juju.
Yeah, is it on an MFL? Is it on an MFL? Or is
correct? Yes, I thought it was, but you're right. Actually, it wasn't. It was FFPC. I apologize.
Yeah. So we don't have FFPC yet. That's hopefully.
But even if you're not on the same format, it's very useful for me on the FFPC. If I'm looking to buy CD Lamb, it's very useful to come on here and get an idea, especially if you pull up similar settings and formats. Yeah,
absolutely. And if you search in there too, like if you click off of CD Lamb and just put in 101, you can just search the pick. So
nice. Awesome.
If you just search, you can just type in, there you go, and you can search 101 and see sort of what else is going on.
Oh, that's huge.
That's
super helpful this time of year. Maybe someone's not as experienced with such a high pick of high value. They're not sure. Maybe they do want to move them, or it gives you a good idea of what's kind of going out there in the market at this time with that value and that pick.
Yeah. So there's one just a couple days ago, Deshaun Watson and Juju for 101 in Superflex. I think it's 101 and Superflex there. And you'll see mine populate tomorrow probably when it reruns the script. So so those are all the options for you, and it's there, and you can constantly see it and just keep looking around and perusing. Search different players. One of the best parts about it too is you can search multiple players. So you can search, hey, what are trades for, if you're trying to piece together an idea of hey, I want to trade Deshaun Watson, and here I want to get back, quarterback X, right? What trades have they gone in together? And if you can search both players.
Oh, you can pull up both players. That's awesome.
Yeah, you can search both players. And they have to be in trades together for them to populate. But you can search for specific ones to see sort of what's there.
Just to kind of just to highlight that, like, this really fits well with our whole pivot technique, right? Because you can put in the two players, the guy you want to pivot from and the guy you want to pivot to, and you can literally get a bunch of examples of trades with those two guys involved, and that just makes it so much easier. So that's definitely something I know I'm going to probably be using moving forward. Yeah, and one of the beauties of it too is it's really helpful to see, for me at least, what the value of players is. The other thing is I really like to look at constructs of deals too, and like there are different times a year where I get very. It's almost like writer's block, where I have a really just a hard time sort of
putting trades together,
Same.
and I just sort of run my head into a wall, and you can look at the trade finder and just get ideas, right? Like, hey, like this is a really interesting construct. Like this is an interesting, this is sort of, I see what they're doing here. And so I'm going to do like a weekly podcast here after the trades, just pick some random trades and just talk about them. And just cause I think it's really, it's pretty, it can be pretty valuable in just seeing what other people are doing in terms of actual trades and actual leagues and some of the constructs that they have. And that's just without even searching the players.
No, it's truly awesome. Dan, anything to add or Theo to this tool or the site? I mean, there is so much awesome stuff on this site. Like I was telling Jordan earlier, there's way more than I even thought, because I was using just very specific sections of it, and I've been exploring it the last couple of days. And man, you've built something really special here, guys. Go check it out. The Analytics of Dynasty. This trade database is just one example and one tool that's available on there. Shout out to Taco Core. Jordan is fantastic, great trade tool, and love your work. I mean, look, people are tuning in for Jordan, man. He's always dropping goodness, and this tool is just a nice representation of what he's doing out there in fantasy land. But Jordan said it. You're investing in your teams. You're paying money to get into these leagues. It only makes sense to invest in you becoming better and getting an edge, which is what you're hoping by, listening to our show on the weekly basis and going to sign up for a site like Jordan's and follow what he's doing out there. Dan, anything to add, man? Your hair is just like, it's just holding really well.
Beautiful.
It's slowly expanding as we.
The slowest.
We gotta get one of those fans, like the pro wrestlers come out somewhere. It's like blowing their hair up. Like, we totally need one of those for this.
Perfect. I'm working on getting the tights too, so you can look forward to that.
Oh yeah. You got to get in that what's that FF Fit Club.
Yes.
We definitely need you modeling some tights in that. Get some squats going on camera with the wrestling tights on, Dan. Let's really amp this thing up.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm afraid I probably look like one of the more the bad guys with the beer belly and the
before. Use the before picture.
Yes, I'm one of the guys who just stomps around the ring and makes silly faces, and then it almost beats the good guy 6 times before finally succumbing to whatever chokehold.
So Dan, before I order you an extra small goat shirt t-shirt to send you for this photo shoot that we're setting up, our boy Taco, man, he really wants a pic.
Yes.
What are you? Are you the guy you're talking about? Does
I sent you a DM, so check.
Did you?
Twitter, check your Twitter DM. See if that's the thing that you're thinking about.
I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about, but I'll just confirm that without. For those who don't know what's going on here, Theo is one of our biggest competitors.
Yeah, so we can't.
I'm in the hole
can't
right
tip our
now.
hand too much.
I'm 2 picks behind.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking about, Dan. Same thing.
Were you? Should we do that one?
Nah, fuck. Just go ahead, man.
All right.
Hey, we call it in Quebec la fournette. La fournette, mon homme. Is that
the pick is in. We are taking with the 806 in our third running back. We are taking Leonard Fournette, running back.
Leonardo
Bay Buccaneers.
All right, there you have it.
There you go.
There you have it. We I don't hate it.
The first in history.
I don't hate it. See, we took a Canuck, the last running back in Chubba, the Maple Chubb, as I'm calling him right now, until I think of something better or someone at Viridian comes up with something better. But I kind of like the Fournette. I don't know, man. Between the Fournette and Rojo, and this can be a whole other show. Fournette just excites me a bit more. So I kind of like it. I
think. Honestly, I think, Rojo is probably the better runner, but, Fournette, he gets that receiving work and, he's a good enough runner for sure.
No, it's nice piece to add.
And Brady trusts him more so.
Mm-hmm.
Rojo, the frustration in Brady's eyes when he looks at Rojo sometimes is just, it's too much to ignore.
All right, Jordan, you're being praised in the chat. You just keep bringing the goodness. We are honored to partner up with you and the Trade Finder app and your site. Remind the people all about the goodness. Anything you want to drop or promo, and we appreciate you, brother. We always appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you being on here with you guys, Theo, as well. Analytics@dynasty.com. You can get the book 2021 edition. It's got all your strategy, all your theory, get it prepped for rookie drafts. And you go over to analytics@dynasty.com. You can subscribe to the website. It'll get you all your stuff. It'll get you Dynasty Daily Podcast. It'll get you to my Dynasty tiers, the Draft Finder, the Real Draft Tracker, the Trade Finder, all of it. I have a group me as well over there, so you get your different tiers in terms of your memberships. Hey, listen, if you just want the trade stuff, and the Draft Finder, go ahead and get an apps. It's the AOD app subscription over there. It's monthly. It's $5.99, and that'll get you all your trades, all your access, everything in terms of all the apps that I have in terms of your draft position and your trade finder. So you can do that as well. So yeah, all of that's over at analyticsdynasty.com. If you have any questions, you can hit me up on Twitter at McNamara Dynasty.
No brainer, guys. $6 a month for the goodness. Yeah, man. It's especially now we're not. I don't know. Up here, we just literally today they just another stay at home order, aka lockdown, aka I'm in hibernation again, like I've been the past few years. So it's not like I'm going to Starbucks to spend that $6. So I mean, it's a no brainer, right? To send that to Jordan and kind of squeeze him for the goatness. Theo, I've been abusing your time these last few weeks. Dan is out there on vacation. He's getting his hair permed and who knows what else, getting tattoos. I don't know what he's doing out there in Minnesota, but you've been a champ, man. You've been coming on the reg. I see you on other shows. You're just all over the place, dude. You're awesome, man. And we love having you on. Remind the people where they can find all your goatness, all your greatness. And that's it, man. Give him a little adios before we close it out.
No, I love being on the GOAT District. It's awesome. I love talking football with you guys. It's tremendous. Jordan, you were great tonight. Just tremendous stuff from Jordan. You can find me on Twitter at the OG Fantasy, and you can find my writing on Player Profiler and BreakoutFinder.com. I'm gonna have a write-up of in with Dan and JD, this Dynasty Depot's Masters Draft. I'm working on that now. So hopefully, something's up there on one of those two sites shortly. And yeah, you'll see me on the streets, the GOAT District streets, and Player Profiler, Breakout Finder.
He's the OG and he's the Mac, and we got the flow out there with Dan. Dan, anything to close this thing out with before we exit the district?
Yeah, I just got to throw out one more thing for Theo. He was just on the Dynasty Depot live-ish show this Monday, which you can catch on YouTube and I'm sure all of your usual podcast outlets as well. Definitely well worth listening to if you want to hear a little bit more about this draft we were talking about. Those guys tore into it pretty well, and had a lot of great takes on strategies and everything else. So. Very, very much worthwhile listening to that as well. And you can catch our boy Theo there too. So, and for us, I mean, I'm knee deep in startups. I had to slack off on the best balls while I'm doing the startups because, I have other things in life that are coming at me a little bit fast right now, but hopefully those will slow down. I can get myself wound back into some best balls as well. I am out there on Twitter. Feel free to catch me at the Overhyped Sweeper. And, if I don't look quite the same as I normally do, that's because, my Baylor Bears won the national championship.
I totally forgot, Dan. I totally forgot. That was going to be part of my intro, man. I got so distracted. Dude, congrats. That's huge.
So yeah, you're gonna see my Twitter feed is a little bit full of Baylor propaganda, and it'll be that way for a week or so, and then I'll get back to normal. So
well deserved, man. That's a huge. You guys are like the New York Giants of college basketball, man. Come on, breeding that undefeated season, taking down the Patriots.
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty fun to beat the Zags. I really thought that was going to be a close game, and it just really wasn't. So, it was as shocking to me as anybody.
No, congrats to you, man. I totally forgot about it, so I'm glad you brought it up before you closed it out, because it's like you hang up the phone, you're like, I should have said, that kind of thing. So,
I mean, you can see the gear right behind me here, so
there you go. There you go, Mr. Alum over there of the new champs. And we'll give a quick shout out to our boy Brian, Ty, Johnny Guerrero, Taco Core in the chat tonight, just being super active with us. We appreciate you guys. And we appreciate you guys tuning with us on the week, man. We keep trying to bring topics and bring shows that'll help you guys be better in your leagues and stay ahead of your league mates, and we hope we're doing that. If there's something we haven't touched on that you want us to hit on, let us know. We've got a huge rookie draft, the ultimate rookie mock, that we're going to be doing at the end of the month, kind of going into the FFPC rookie draft season. We're going to have a bunch of goodness on there for that, fully loaded show. And man, we got a loaded guest list right now. I can't think off the top of my head, but I'll tweet it out for you guys. Make sure you tune in on the reg. We appreciate you guys. Press the subscribe button, that like button. Press that thing if you appreciate the show or any of the goodness we're giving. And we didn't do a good job tonight, Dan, with our partners or sponsors. We mention them, but usually we do a little commercial action in the middle. So quick shout out, FFPC, myffpc.com, literally the best site to play fantasy on. That's kind of what we stuck on tonight, is a league we're playing on there. They've got best ball, dinos. They just launched the redrafts right now, early bird action to get in on the $500,000 and get some bonuses if you sign up for that. So check out the FFPC. Dynasty Depot, we talked about, man. If you're on the FFPC building rosters or dynasty rosters like Theo, buying, selling, you can do all that on the Dynasty Depot this offseason. Make a little cash, a little profit that you can reinvest in your fantasy football portfolio. Am I right, Theo? Is that that's how it's going on over there?
Absolutely. You got to keep an eye on the depot. Up.
Nice. I love it. I love when you come in and show me a new orphan that you're looking to buy on the depot. Guys, tonight was awesome. These strategy talks are always my favorite shows. Jordan, I mean, anytime you come on, it's just like gold. It's just gold, man. I just love everything you bring to it. The personality, the knowledge, the whole deal. Theo, always a blast. Dan, love the flow. Love you as always. And we'll talk about our next pick coming up in these startups. And guys, we appreciate you as usual. We'll check you all on the later.
District, the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text. That trash offer's the best. You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.